Back to the action, and in a last second decision, I dive down the inside of the car in front into Beckett's, side by side as I hug the inside wall, but the other car does not want to give up the position. Hey guys, and as you probably know, this Sunday is the 70th anniversary Grand Prix, marking 70 years since F1's first Grand Prix, being the 1950 British Grand Prix at Silverstone. So to commemorate that, we're here in Assetto Corsa. I'm going to be driving a 4-lap race around classic Silverstone in these vintage F1 cars. The cars in question are these Maserati 250Fs, used in F1 from 1954 till 1960, driven by the likes of Stirling Moss and Juan Manuel Fangio. And the circuit in question is the classic layout of Silverstone, used from 1952 until 1974. So in short, I'm going to be doing a 4-lap race in these classic F1 cars at classic Silverstone, in honour of the upcoming 70th anniversary Grand Prix. So without further ado, let's begin. So here we are on the grid at vintage Silverstone, starting right at the back of the pack as the lights go out for this 4-lap race around this legendary circuit. The cars in front slow to get away well as I dart down the inside line, passing all three of them as we make our way down the old start-finish straight as we come towards the first corner. Now coming into Cops side by side with the cars to my left as I go very late on the brakes, hugging the wall to the inside as we once again make up another position. Of course, in a modern F1 car, Cops is usually taken completely flat out at over 180 miles per hour, but in this old layout of Silverstone in these old cars, it's one of the slowest corners on this entire circuit. Now coming through Maggots, obviously very different to the Maggots corner of today, as we decide to go down the outside line again, incredibly late on the brakes, as we go side by side with the car to the right, taking the long outside line through Beckett's, as we successfully fight off the other car and take the position. Slight touch on the grass there on the outside of the track, as I try to use full use of the available asphalt, as we make our way onto the hangar straight, a very familiar sight indeed. Chasing the car in front as we fly down the hangar straight before the hard braking zone of Stowe, as I veer towards the inside line, thinking about making a move, as I push incredibly hard on the brakes, maybe a bit too hard, locking up slightly, but regardless, that earned us not one, but two more positions. Held up slightly by the slow car in front as I go wide on the corner exit. Of course, in this old layout of Silverstone, there's no curbs to be seen. As soon as you push the car too hard and a wheel leaves the circuit, that's it, you're on the grass, and you're about to enter a world of trouble. Coming very cautiously into what is the final corner on the modern circuit, Club, the site of the crash between Alex Albon and Kevin Magnussen last week during the British Grand Prix. Now coming towards the long left-hander of Abbey. Nowadays Abbey is a quick right-hander, but of course this layout of the circuit is incredibly different, as I misjudge my braking zone and go very slow through the tricky left-hander and are forced to concede position to the car behind. Not going to give the position up that easily though as we come towards the final corner of Woodcote, as I go late on the brakes, taking the very wide line through this long right-hander in pursuit of the car in front before a space appears, and I dart back to the inside line, taking the position as we finish the first lap at historic Silverstone. Now coming on to the second lap of this 4-lap race, and quite a long way to the cars in front, so I'll definitely have to pick up the pace as we once again make our way through Cops as we try and edge away from the car behind. All circuits evolve and change over time, with the pursuit of becoming both as exciting and safe as possible for drivers and spectators, but I don't think any circuit have changed just as much as Silverstone from its debut race in 1948 to its modern variation in 2020. In fact, the original layout from 1948 used the runways of the circuit as long straights, as of course Silverstone is one of the generation of racetracks born out of disused World War II airbases. Now coming through Chapel, getting very close to the car in front, as we storm back onto the fearsome hangar straight, as I get a bad exit, much slower than the car behind, as you see them slowly creeping up in the mirror, with them taking the inside line coming into Stowe. Gonna try and defend hard from the aggressive car to the right as I go very late on the brakes, definitely a bit too late, as I lock up and make contact with the car in front, with them just being able to keep their car on the circuit, and that could have ended a lot worse for both of us. Getting back on the power once again as we thunder towards Club Corner, and of course in this classic layout of the circuit, there is no Vale chicane, so it's a flat out straight run from Stowe to Club. Nice and easy coming through the braking zone as I get right up close to the bumper of the car in front, as I try to find a way past, going smoothly on the power on the exit of Club, trying to stay as close as possible to my opponents ahead. Once again approaching the deceptively hard left-hander of Abbey, as I go early on the brakes, don't want to make the same mistake I made last lap, and I certainly didn't, with me gaining on the car in front, as I think about taking the inside line for a possible overtake into Woodcote. Under the bridge we go as I switch to the inside line, incredibly late on the brakes as I dive down the inside of the car to the left, as I slide through the final corner and begin the third lap of this race. Now onto the start finish straight once again as I chase the car in front as we fly towards Copse Corner in these vintage F1 cars in this vintage layout of the Silverstone circuit. I get on the brakes just a tad too late, almost running into the back of the car in front, but luckily contact was avoided. Still stuck behind the car in front however as they go slow through the exit of Copse, forcing me to not be able to use good use of the track as we once again make our way through the fast left-hander of Maggots, turning into the corner incredibly early, getting a much better run on the car in front on the way to Beckett's. Taking the outside line before suddenly switching to the inside line as I try and make my way past, but the car in front is still holding on to position as I power out the exit of the corner as the other car runs incredibly wide onto the grass, allowing me to gain yet another position. Sliding through Chapel Corner, almost dipping my front left tyre onto the grass on the apex as I chase the distant car in front down the hangar straight. These vintage F1 cars really are a tough beast to drive, and of course I'm only getting the tiniest sense of what they must have been like to drive, as I'm just racing them from behind a screen. These older cars are so incredibly physical to drive, especially as I was recording this with maximum force feedback on my wheel, and it's crazy that even after a couple laps in a simulator, you're still gonna finish in a sweat because of just how demanding these old cars are to drive. Anyway, back to the action, or I guess lack of action, as the car in front is still a good distance ahead as we make our way through Club, and what strikes me the most is the lack of buildings and grandstands surrounding the circuit. Of course, where we are now is the modern start-finish straight, so it's odd seeing the massive building to the right replaced by fields and hay bales. Now coming on to Abbey, my favourite corner of the circuit, as we run wide on exit there, skipping over the dirt on the side of the track, but managing to keep it together as we make our way down the now non-existent farm straight. Early on the brakes, coming onto the long right-hander of Woodcote, trying to be nice and tidy through there, making full use of the circuit as we begin our final lap of this vintage F1 race. Still chasing the car in front in the hope of making at least one more position before the end, as we enter the braking zone of Copse for one final time, gaining massively on the car in front. Nice and careful coming through Copse, don't want to spin out right at the end where it matters most, as we make our way back towards the incredibly fast Maggots, almost taken completely flat out even in these vintage cars. Of course, in the modern layout, Maggots is the first corner of the tricky left-right of the Maggots-Beckett's Chapel complex, but back in this layout it's of course incredibly different. Back to the action, and in a last second decision I dive down the inside of the car in front into Beckett's, side by side as I hug the inside wall, but the other car does not want to give up the position. Still side by side on the exit of Beckett's as we come towards Chapel, almost some contact there, but ultimately the other car hangs on to the position. Great racing from both of us here as we fly down the hangar straight on the way to Stowe, still only a small distance between us and the car in front, as we prepare to battle it out through this final half a lap. Coming into the heavy braking zone, and I'm way too late on the brakes, ploughing right into the back of the car in front. Very foolish mistake on my end, as it is very easy to misjudge your braking zone on this historic version of Silverstone. The fight is still not over however, as I continue to chase the car in front as we come towards Club one final time, thinking about a move to the inside as I decide to go for a dive bomb very late on the brakes as we're side by side going through Club. They're still there, going to take the outside line as I tighten up to the inside wall, trying to get the best exit possible, but not as good an exit as the car to the left, as they manage to once again hang on to the position on the exit of the corner. Now coming on to the penultimate corner of this 4-lap race, it seems unlikely we'll be able to make up the position in the small amount of time we have left, but certainly not impossible. The car behind having a much better run through Abbey as they try and take the outside line coming into the final corner of this race, side by side into Woodcote with the car to my left as I go much later on the brakes. Now gaining on the car in front on the final corner, going wide but going back to the inside line, it's going to be a photo finish as the car in front just about manages to hold onto the position by the tiniest margin imaginable. So there we go, that was a 4-lap race at Classic Silverstone in these vintage F1 cars. This video was a ton of fun to make, and if you enjoy these style of videos, please let me know in the comment section below. All criticism is welcomed, and if you have a Assetto Corsa and a racing wheel, I would definitely recommend taking these older F1 cars out for a spin, as they are great fun to drive. But anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to subscribe, comment, share, and I'll be back in the next video. See ya!